Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's session. My name is Manikandan Balasubramanian, and I'm the founder of Change Agents Foundation, an online forum for building awareness around health, wealth, careers, and relationships. Today, we are presenting Ikigai, the reason for being. As you all know, it is one of the best-selling and the most popular books in recent times by our guest today, the presenter, Mr. Michael Rajesh. So, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the chat box. You can either post it in the YouTube or on the official page of Change Agents Foundation. I'll bring them up during the presentation, and we will also have some time for questions at the end of the session. Now it is time to turn the time over to Michael Rajesh. I would welcome him on board. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Mani. Nice to get back to the screen.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to see you and being part of Change Agents Foundation. I think this is our second book in the series of cover and content. So last time you did Atomic Habits, and to tell you the fact, there has been a lot of feedback that I received from few folks. And how was it for you? I also want you to talk about how you started up with reading books and how it helps now in your career or in your personal life.
Oh, yeah. So I started reading during the days in graduation. I wouldn't call myself an voracious reader, but I did have a liking for reading, and I enjoy reading, primarily novels. So I always enjoyed, reading novels. And I keep saying this. I've read this book, Godfather, at least a little close to 2 dozen times. And every time I read
Yeah.
the book, I have a new insight to life. And I always keep saying this. I Many of my values and principles I pick from the book, and I take pride in saying that that has been a kind of a guiding factor in my life. So like
Yeah.
that, a lot of books that I've read, which allows me to take a lot of cues and examples. So that has been the practice. Thanks to Change Agent, that compels me to read little beyond fiction and little into what is
Yeah.
required for today's life.
Yeah.
So that's the
So
way it is, Mona.
thank you very much, Michael. We might be having new viewers today. So, for the benefit of them, I would like to introduce the guest today. Mr. Michael Rajesh is an HR leader with 2 decades of experience in multicultural industries like manufacturing, telecom, banking, and retail. He's specialized in leadership assessments, hiring, and he was also heading HR for sales and marketing and recruitment for Dalmia Cement. He was also heading learning and development for Dalmia Cement Bharat Limited quite some time, and he is currently the head of HR for Dalmia Cement. I've also had the privilege of working under Mr. Michael. And Michael, over to you for you to what you call is unveil or unwrap the content and the cover of Ikigai. So it's
Right.
over to you. I'm so excited and all ears to listen to you.
Right. Thanks for the amazing introduction, Money. One little add on to that. I used to head learning and development. I used to head sales and marketing. Now I'm transitioning to a new role to be a part of the plant HR team. So I'm yet to head a plant. As of now, I'm the process of getting equipped to handle a plant role. So that's the way it is, Money. So with that, I start with the book Ikigai, and
Yes.
when I have to speak of the book, there's a book. I was introduced to this book through a friend of mine, my classmate called Mahendran. After I did the review last time, and we were discussing, and he was speaking about this book to me. And I never thought I would do a review of this book, but thanks to Mahendran, my classmate, and who instantly works with Apex Laboratories right now. So he was the
Okay.
man who first shared this book as a WhatsApp message to me, sometime before. And as you know, I was wanting to do Godfather, but again, the book has a little trace of gray. So then I thought it's good that I would start with Ikigai. So
Yeah.
when I speak of Ikigai, and I'm sure there are, I did Google to see what people have to speak of Ikigai, and and I'm sure there are tons and tons of literature, both in English and in Tamil, about Ikigai. So my experience of Ikigai, I'm going to share about my experience of Ikigai, and I'm going to touch about those memories that come to mind with my work and my personal life of Ikigai. So that's the way it's going to be. I know quite a few friends of mine last time shared saying, Michael, is there not too much of a personal experience of yours, people whom I've touched with? I did contemplate to it, but I definitely felt I would do injustice if I do not speak of people whom I come across in my life. So this is also going to be little of my personal experience of people whom I have come across, my experience of them is what it's going to be. And I'm not sure if I would be comfortable doing something which doesn't experience my life. So that's the way it's going to be. So I keep saying earlier also. So my Ikigai, this reviews more of my experience of Ikigai, what I've seen, and people have come across what it's going to be all about. So that's the way it's going to be. So, Mani, if there's going to be little too much overdose of my experience, feel free to stop me and ask me some questions. But otherwise, that we move forward.
Go ahead. I think
And
more
when I start
experience
today,
will make it more relatable for a person like
oh
me.
yeah, so that's the way I also do it. So when I do this today, I would devote my today's session to my dad, now who's going to turn 75 this November and now 25th. So I'm going to devote this book to my dad. Uh, so when I see this, so I'm going to bring in two examples. When I read this book, so this book primarily speaks about not only longevity. Many speaks of longevity is what people associate this book to, and here there's also a little more than longevity is also being happy. Now, how do you transition to gracefully age is what the book is all about, is what I have understood the book about. So when I speak of gracefully aging, and this book speaks primarily about a town or a city, whatever they call in Japan, and they say there people have lived longer and they have beaten death. So that's what it's all about. So, and I'm sure since there's a mention of the book of Japan, there's a lot of reference from Japan, and I'm going to share about somebody whom I have known in my personal experience who have lived little close to 1 or 3 years. I'm not sure how much in literature the records are right, but I've known, and the village that he comes from, people say that he lived close to 1 or 3 years. So his name is somebody called as Kote and Israel, and he had lived close to 1 or 3 years. And when I
Oh,
read this book, I was able to relate to many of his values that he had spoken to me when I was young and in my early days of my upbringing. So many things when I read this book, I was able to relate to this man. And he lived in a place called Michael Palayam. So that's close to Dindikal, maybe 30, 40 kilometers from Dindikal. And that's the way I was born. So that's where he was. And I draw a lot of close parallels between living longer and in Japan to the man whom I personally experienced in my own life or living a little close to 1 or 3 years. So that's where it is. So going back to what it is, the Ikigai book is written by Hector Francis. Hector and Francis are two individuals. The name is too longer, but for ease, I'm going to refer them as Hector and Francis. So that's the way it is. So written by them, and they refer to, or they are understanding that people live longer. So they go to a village and understand what is the reason why people live there longer. Is what they have done some little research. So the book primarily speaks about their experience of traveling and experiencing their culture in Japan is what it is all about. So Ikigai primarily speaks about being happy, and what it primarily also says is about live life meaningfully. Many a time, I had a question. I'm sure most of you would have a question. Now, what is the meaning of my life? Why do I exist? Is there a meaning to my life? Is what a question many of us will have to ask ourselves, and I'm sure many of us ask for ourselves. So the minute we are able to see a meaning in life, then life is beautiful. The minute we don't see a meaning in life, then life is sickening and bored. So the entire book covers about how do you see meaning in life and what is it, the meaning for yourself is what it's all about. And the book goes to a village called Okinawa where people live longer, and if they look a little deeper, it speaks about how healthy diet, simple life, outdoor life, green tea, good climate is able to make people live longer. So I would relate to something close to that is the place that I was referring to, where if you see a rural life, again, if I take this to the Indian context, if you see people who live in the the villages tend to live little more longer. People live in the small hamlets in villages and live to have little more blissful is what I have seen.
yeah.
So if I have to relate to the place that I come from called Michael Paulin, I have known people by 7:30. Normally, the village is closed. By 5 in the morning, people are awake. So it goes back to say a simple and a humble life is far more beautiful than living a maddening city life is what it's all about. So
I
that's the
subscribe
way
for
it is.
that.
And yeah, sure, buddy. So he also goes little deeper to a village called Ogimi, and it's a rural town, and the village is also called as village of longevity. So the
Oh,
research
okay.
says, people have lived here. There are more centenarians than anywhere in the world. And the one more specialty of the village is this is a village which got hit in the World War II, and close to 2 million people, sorry, 2 lakh people got killed in this village. Imagine if it has happened to us, we would have been cribbing, we would have been grumbling, we would have been whining. But this is a village where close to 2 lakh people got hit because of the World War II. But even with those kind of a tragedy, people are happy, people are living meaningfully, people are able to live blissfully happy. And if I have to, they say, what is the secret behind this? They use a word called Ikari Ba Code. Ikari Ba Code, which means, treat everyone like brothers and sisters.
Oh,
When I read this, I was referring to our pledge, which we study in school, where we say, all
all my brother.
brothers, all Indians are brothers and sisters. So we also made fun. So if I have to look everyone as my brother and sister, where would I get married to? So that was a quote that I was referring when I was reading this, book. And this morning I had met all my classmates across the world on a Zoom at 7:30, people around the world. So I was remembering this pledge that came to mind, like when in school we said this word, all in Indian brothers and sisters. So this book also refers something called Ikari Ba Chod, which means treat everyone like brothers. So I would like to draw one amazing example in my work life, whom I recently started interfacing a little close with. I work with one Mr. Dr. Shiva. So in his mails, he always writes, brothers. So I was asking this question, why do you write brothers? He said, no, Michael. In the recent part, I started using the word brothers. And when I was relating to the book, I was trying to draw a parallel from there. The minute you start seeing people who work along with you with little more affinity, you tend to treat them a little more better. And sometime before, I happened to listen to a video of a CEO speaking about, especially during the times of COVID, asking people to leave the organization. So, or not asking people to leave when they do a mistake. So, would we send people out if they're a family? If I run a company, if my brother does a mistake, would I let him go by? If my daughter does a mistake, would I let them go by? So, in a corporate world, why do we let people go away because they do a mistake? So, I was trying to relate these two examples when I read this word Ikari Ba Chod. So Dr. Shiva was saying that whenever I see fellow colleagues of mine, I like to treat them like brothers. Say if they do a mistake, I like to stand with them, support them, compliment them. Not to, I would say I would reprimand them. I would not be firm in reprimanding, but I'm trying to say that I like to correct them and set them right, is what he was saying. So the word brotherhood makes a huge difference. And comrade, brotherhood are very strong words. The minute you start using it, you look at not condemning somebody, you like to make them part of your life, is what I would say about.
Yeah.
So that's something which we should try to practice. And the next word the book speaks about, okay, friends, I'm going to take few words from there. The book refers, because it would be injustice if I don't use the words. And I'm also going to use the words to bring in how we see life. So there's also a word called you maru, which they have used. This speaks about nourishing teamwork, helping others, nourishing friendship. So they say the village people are happy because they are able to nourish and live together. So nourishing friendship, living together, doing moderate exercise. As last time also spoke about atomic habits of doing exercise. So here they are referring to, and I'm sure every book speaks about healthy life. So it also speaks about nourishing, a moderate, nourishing, friendship, eating light, and doing moderate exercise is very, very critical. Moderate but regular, very, very important. So, and most important is celebrating. So when I speak of celebration, and when I read about celebration, I was remembering this my work experience in HSBC. So, I used to work in a team under a man called Mr. Devesh Mathur. So when it rains, and I'm referring to 2005 to 2010 when I used to be working with them. So when it rains, we used to ask a boss for a treat. So he used to get, it was in Paris beach station close by. So we used to get vadai when it was raining. So in
Hmm.
summer, there used to be juices. So when he trims his hair, we get treated. So I refer, when I went and joined them, the day one I joined, was in December I think end of December 31st, I joined them, and that's when we had hit with tsunami at the point of time. So the first decision, when I came and joined him, was Michael gave us a treat. So the first decision I took was celebrate day with cake for joining and declaring half-day leave because of no tsunami, fear of tsunamis. That's the way it is. So from the day I joined, I started with celebration in HSBC under Man Comes with Divesh. And the day I left, the last day when I was leaving, the entire team, I was celebrated by giving ice cream. So I left during summer. I left somewhere in April. So Divesh said that Michael, let us celebrate the way you joined with a joy. You should also leave with joy. So when I left, the day when I was leaving, I organized ice cream for everybody in the organization. So when I speak of celebration, I still remember my days in HSBC. And even today, after 2005, we are almost 15 years, even later. If I have to cherish the memories of mine, I remember celebration. I remember only HSBC days. So there's joy in celebration. So wherever the team has small get-togethers, meeting, celebration, it is good. So here in this village also, they speak of a practice, of having to have celebration together. So they eat together, they fun together, they celebrate together. Is what the village is all about. So in chapter 1, it speaks about how do we stay young. The art of staying young is what it is. Before even going there, he speaks about 4 things in Ikigai. So one is what you love. So there's 4 diagrams that is there. I'm not go deep into the diagram, but he speaks of 4 things. One is what you love. The second one is what you are good at. The third one is what you can do to get paid. And the fourth one is what the world needs. So the entire book circles on these 4 things. That is, what do you love? What are you good at? What do you get paid for? And what does the world need? So the entire book circles on the 4 examples. And I will start with the example so that we can touch other things. So I'll take the example of cricket, since we are in India and most of the world cricket far more better. So, and I'll take Dhoni, the most prominent, popular leader and most sorted man. So he speaks about that. He didn't speak of Dhoni, but I'm going to take examples from the life of Dhoni. So he loved to play cricket. So what is he good at? He also plays cricket really well. And what does he get paid? Yes, we all know he gets paid in tons and tons of money. And does the world require it? Yes, because he is able to bring in a lot of entertainment and solace to people who are watching it. So that's what he means by it. So Dhoni knows cricket. There are many who know music, like Mr. Ikigai. So what does he love? He loves to play music. What is he good at? Composing music. Does he get paid for it? Definitely gets paid for it. Does the world need it? Yes. He can listen to symphony and be in peace. That's what it is all about. So the entire book circles on these 4 things, and that's the way it is. If you're able to identify these 4 things and live by it, nothing like that.
Okay.
So money questions in between money. So more to be a monologue. So any questions, money?
So I feel that what you love is you should pursue the passion. You should pursue what you're good at. I think that is one reason for living a very long life. That's something I understood. I thought it is only going to be a very fulfilling experience for your career or for your life, but I never knew that it was going to be a reason for your long life.
Exactly. So the minute you start loving what you're doing, you tend to be a little more living longer. So there's in the book also speaks about something called the flow. I will go and touch that when we speak of the flow, but that's what it is about. So the book starts with saying that what makes you get up in the morning. So everyone gets up in the morning with some kind of purpose in life. So what makes you to get up in the morning? If the purpose is something which you enjoy, then life is beautiful. So that's what the book speaks about. The book also touches about don't retire, and they speak of nice examples of don't retire. So don't retire is an amazing experience. So in Indian context, we say retire at 58. Somebody retires at 45. Today people speak of retiring very early, and when you and me, I also thought I should also retire little early in life. When I say retire, chill. Go to my farm and in ECR, live life what I wanted. But the book says that never retire in life. So when he says don't retire in life, so he says simply he doesn't refer to the work. He doesn't refer to the job that we do. He refers to about never leave your passion. The minute you leave your passion, then you will lose your life. So here they say, when you say don't retire, so he says people even at 80, 85 do the work in Japan. And he says, if you love something, continue doing it. So if I have to take another right parlance, for example, in Indian context, we can see politicians. If I can make a mention of Mr. Karunanidhi. So until his last days, he lived a meaningful life, in my opinion. He was able to be active. He was in active politics until the last days, last but few days of him. He was able to write. He was able to contribute to the community. He was able to give witty comments in response to the political movements.
Very
You can
true.
look
It is attributed to his physical and mental activity,
definitely.
or rather mental activity. Yes.
Mr. Shivaji Ganesh, the legendary, movie artist. He lived until the last minute. He was able to act in movie. He made the best of the movies. Nagesh, the man who was able to do meaningful movies. My legendary. I love M.R. Radha, so I love to listen to him. M.R. Radha. So they never died. They never retired in their life. So even the last days of theirs, they were able to do a meaningful life. That's what it's all about. There are a lot of many social workers like Mahat Reza, who are able to do a meaningful life. So the days go by, the age they pass by, they were able to do a meaningful life. They said the most pictured personality was Mahat Reza, is what people say. The most painted picture was Mahat Reza, with so much of wrinkles on her face. She was supposed to be the most beautiful woman in the world. So she aged gracefully. So that's what it's all about. So that's the way it is all about. The book also refers about something called the blue zone. So blue zone is something where people live longer, they live less of chronic disease, and they also age a little more gracefully. When I say age, I'm not referring to 60, 70, but going as good as 100 years. So when they did the research and they came to understand, saying that people primarily live longer in blue zone primarily because of diet, exercise, their meaning to life, and their social ties. And I like to draw the parlance of the Indian culture when we speak of right now. So historically, we see we all lived a joint family. When we lived a joint family, so if you take diet, so we always had during Diwali, when we had enough and more sweets and good. So they also give one suranam. So when you eat the suranam, whatever you eat, it get digested next day morning. So today, I don't know how many families make suranam after Diwali, but I remember, whenever you eat a good food, your mom had her own recipe that makes you, be able to digest things far more better. And some form of exercise. Indian culture is filled with exercise. When you go to a temple, we go to any temple. So we do. Every I know in temples. I had a close to my home. There is a Vinayak temple. So in early days of life, so we used to go with the friends and தூப்புகாரம் போடுறது பஸ்கி போடுறது push-ups மாதிரி கீழே படுத்து எந்திரிக்கிறது. So these are all there in the Indian culture. But there's a craze when the external world, when the Europeans speak, we get excited. When somebody from today, when Japanese speak, we get excited. But the Indian culture has so much of strong ethos in life, where of diet, of exercise, finding purpose in life. The last but not least, being as a family. The joint family system in Indian culture is amazingly good. So every child, there's a birthday, there's a wedding day, there is some form of celebration. So these celebrations bring in joy. So any family that lives joint family, the tendency to have the elders to live longer is beautiful. So currently I stay in a colony and in the guest house of my the quarters. Yesterday is a small boy who celebrated his birthday. So he was doing 7th standard and his birthday. So all of us in the guest house stood together, sang together, and we had dinner together. It's an amazing experience of mine. So the minute you live as a family, the minute you're able to live with a lot of people together, there's always a lot of joy. So in my own experience of my own personal family life now, I kind of live an extended family life, a joint family, where there are almost 18 of us in one side of the family, and I've got almost 14 of us on the other side. When I say 18, my wife's side, and my 14, my own siblings and their children. So we celebrate birthdays. Now every month there's a birthday. Every all 3 weeks there's a wedding day. So that's the way it's all about. So that gives a lot of joy. And we have an extended family. And every team member, there are big teams, we celebrate birthdays with them. So that's what they speak about. And they also speak about a concept called hara hara ha kibu. And I'll tell you, so when I read this, I felt it is said personally for me. So it is called as never eat beyond 80% of your stomach. So when I read this, I actually felt it is meant for me. I'm
That's
somebody
hard to
who believes
achieve.
in eating to the brim. Yeah, it is very difficult to practice, but it says perfectly eat only 80% to fill of your stomach. And I like to draw an example, from the man whom I was referring to, who lived 1 or 3 years, Kotain Israel. So now down south in Dindukal, there used to be not a plate. There's something called kumba. Kumba means it will be a vessel. வெங்கலத்தில் பண்ண பாத்திரம், அந்த பாத்திரம் வந்து ஒரு கிண்ண மாதிரி இருக்கும் பார்க்கறதுக்கு, வெங்கலத்தில் பண்ணிருப்பாங்க. ஸோ now I remember him, he's my grandfather. So when we serve him food, he will take the bowl and he will touch the food like this. I've never seen him eating to the full of the bowl. So he will only touch and say, கொஞ்சம் நிறைய எடுத்து சொல்லுவார். அப்ப எடுத்துருப்பா ஐயா எடுத்துருங்க அப்படின்னு. ஸோ அவர் சொல்லுவார் மாதிரி, சாப்பிட்றோம் வயிறு மட்டும் சாப்பிடக்கூடாது, ஏன்னா வயிறு மட்டும் சாப்பிட்டா தூக்கம் வரும், உடம்பு வந்து சரியா வேலை செய்யாது, எப்பவுமே பசியோடவே சாப்பிடுவாரு. ஸோ எஸ்பெஷலி நைட் தூங்குறப்ப நீ வந்து வயிறு முட்டை சாப்பிட்டா அது வந்து நல்லதில்லை, உடம்புக்கு நல்லதில்லை, மனசுக்கு நல்லதில்லை, அறிவுக்கு நல்லதுன்னு. இந்த புக்கு படிக்கிறப்ப ஃபுல்லாவே என்னோட ஐயா அப்பா, அது என்னோட அப்பாவோட அப்பா தான் ஞாபகம் வந்துச்சு, எனக்கு இஸ்ரேல் தான் ஞாபகம் வந்துச்சு. ஸோ அது சர்ப்ரைஸ். அந்த காலத்துல வந்து எல்லாருமே தெரிஞ்சிருக்கு, வயிறு முட்டை சாப்பிட்டோம்னா நம்ம வந்து சோம்பேறி ஆயிடுவோம். ஸோ இந்த புக்கு ஃபுல்லா என்ன சொல்றாங்கன்னா, eat only 80% and not beyond that. ஸோ அந்த புக் படிக்கிறப்ப எனக்கே எழுதின மாதிரி இருந்துச்சு, ஏன்னா ஐ பிலீவ் இன் ஈட்டிங் டு த பிரிம். ஸோ புக்கு படிக்க ஆரம்பிச்சதுக்கு அப்புறமே லாஸ்ட் ஒரு 10 நாளாவே வந்து முடிஞ்ச அளவுக்கு கஷ்டம் தான், ஆனா இருந்தாலும் I'm trying to eat to 80% of it. Once in a while is fine to eat, but not every day.
Correct. நீங்க சொல்லும்போது வந்து I could not think of a Japanese with a belly. You can never imagine or visualize any Japanese with a belly. Certainly not. Correct. So that is what I could think.
They also say those Westerners who live in Japan, they also tend to be a little more trimmer. When they say them trim, they also tend to be a little more. They try to Sanskritization, they try to look at them, replicate them. So they also look a little more trimmer. Okay. Also see. Okay,
Japanese influence Western poyache. So I thought, see, even today, this book, I think it is written in 2017-18. And if they are able to bring in that tradition culture now, if they say it is still protected, it's a very vishయం. I see it as a very big surprise. You talked about your grandfather, your father in villages, but now there is a village that exists in Japan which has all these practices, and even now there are centenarians living. So Japan is influenced both by China and by Western countries, I think so, maybe in the last 50-60 years. So it is quite surprising.
They have not lost the culture, and the book also says if you don't lose the culture, it is good. And I'm sure Tamil Nadu எடுத்தா கூட there will be a lot of villages where people still live longer. But ஆனா நம்ம யாருமே அது போய் ரெக்கார்ட் பண்ணியோ அதை பத்தி பேசுறது கிடையாது, நம்ம சொல்றதும் கிடையாது. பிளஸ் நம்ம எல்லாருமே சொல்லுமா, அந்த மோகம் அதிகம், வெளிநாட்டு மோகன்றது நம்மளுக்கு எல்லாத்துலயும் அதிகமா இருக்கனால இருக்கலாம், எனக்கு தெரியல, நானே படிச்சது இல்லை, நான் பார்த்தெல்லாம் சொல்றேன். So that's the way it is all about. So they say they eat normally 1800 calories of food, where normally we eat 2300 to 2400 calories of food. They say Japanese normally eat 1800 calories of food. So the Atomic Habits படிச்சப்ப நான் நினைச்ச மாதிரி இந்த புக் படிக்கிறப்ப நினைச்ச ஒண்ணுதான், let me also start reducing the intake of calories of food. They also say one more thing, not only reduce the calories of food every day, at least weekly once they suggest going for a fasting. If you can't fast fully, going for low calories, like 500-600 calories. ஸோ நம்ம திரும்பி பார்த்தோம்னா தமிழ் லிட்ரேச்சர் பிளஸ் கல்ச்சர்ல சொல்றாங்கன்னா, சில நேரத்தில் வந்து ரிலிஜன் ஸ்பீக்ஸ் அபவுட் ஃபாஸ்டிங், மெனி ரிலிஜன் ஸ்பீக்ஸ் அபவுட் ஃபாஸ்டிங். ஸோ நம்ம ரிலிஜன்லயும் நம்ம கல்ச்சர்லயும் அந்த ஃபாஸ்டிங் வார்த்தை இருக்கு, ஆனால் நம்ம ப்ராக்டிஸ் பண்றது இல்லை. இப்போ நினைக்கிறோம் 3 வேளை பிரியாணி சாப்பிட்டா நல்லதுன்னு நினைக்கிறோம், நம்ம அது ஆக்சுவலா தப்புன்றாங்க. என்ன சொல்றாங்கன்னா, once a while fasting is good. So I know somebody whom I know, they fast on Thursdays. Sai Baba kaha they fast on Thursdays. அது சொல்லலாம், கடவுள் பேரை சொல்லி பண்றது தப்புன்னு நான் சொல்ல மாட்டேன். ஆனா என்ன சொல்லணும்னா, ஏதோ ஒரு காலத்துல ஃபாஸ்ட் பண்ணுங்க, அட்லீஸ்ட் இஃப் நாட் ஃபுல்லி ஃபாஸ்ட் லிட்டில்ன்றாங்க. ஸோ நம்மளால ஃபுல்லா பண்ண முடியும், அட்லீஸ்ட் நான் ட்ரை பண்ண ஆசைப்படுறேன். என்னால வந்து 2500 கேலரிஸ் சாப்பிட்றேன் நான் ஒரு நாளைக்கு ஆவரேஜா. ஐ லைக் டு அட்லீஸ்ட் ரெஸ்ட்ரிக்ட் 1000 கேலரிஸ் டு ஸ்டார்ட் வித். ஸோ தட்ஸ் வே டு ஸ்டார்ட். The next one they speak about is Mawai. Shiva, sorry, Mani, I'm going to slow up. Maybe 45 minutes. I make up Mukasi. It's fine to rush, not to rush. Correct?
No problem. Yes.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So they also speak something called as Mawai. MOAI. Mawai, it's called a club. When I say simple relevance, club. What do they say is they join as a community, they sing, they dance, they eat, they cherish, and they live peacefully. So again, I go back to the villages. நம்ம வில்லேஜ்ல பார்த்தோம்னா எல்லா மாசமும் ஏதோ ஒரு திருவிழா, ஏதோ ஒரு கல்ச்சர் இருக்கும். அந்த கல்ச்சர் அந்த திருவிழா நடக்க என்ன ஆகும்னா ஊரே ஒன்னா சேரும். They all sing together, they dance together, they eat together, they sleep together, they spend some time together, they have sports together, they meet each other, in the culture. In the place that I come from, called Michael Rajesh, every year they celebrate the feast of St. Michael's together. ஸோ அந்த ஊரே திருவிழாவாக இருக்கும். ஸோ எல்லா ஊர்லேயுமே அந்த திருவிழா கோலங்கள் நம்ம ஊர்லேயும் இருக்கு. ஸோ என்ன பண்ணணும், நம்ம வருஷத்துக்கு ஒரு திருவிழா கொண்டாடுறோம். ஆனால் இவன் என்ன சொல்றோம்னா வாரம் வி மீட் டுகெதர், மாசம் வி ஸ்பெண்ட் டைம் டுகெதர்ன்றாங்க. ஸோ வாட் தே சேயிங் இஸ் இஃப் யூ ஆர் ஏபிள் டு மீட் அஸ் அ ஸ்மால் கம்யூனிட்டி, இட் இஸ் நைட் அண்ட் இட்ஸ் பியூட்டிஃபுல்றாங்க. இஃப் யூ சி தி இந்தியன்ஸ் ஹூ லிவ் அவுட் சைட் இந்தியா, நான் இன்னைக்கு காலையில் என்னோட ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸோட வியோட கிளாஸ்மேட்ஸ் ரீயூனியன் மாதிரி ஜூம்ல பண்ணோம். அப்போ பார்த்தோம்னா என்ன சொன்னா பீப்புள் ஹூ லிவ் இன் யூஎஸ் அண்ட் யூகே அண்ட் அதர் கண்ட்ரீஸ் அவன் என்ன சொன்னா ஸ்லீப் ஓவர்ன்றான். They wanted somebody cooks and they meet together. So that's what they speak about it. When we go outside, we join together. We don't mix together. So here they speak about it's simply speaking clubbing together. But here the club defines them to less consumption of everything. நம்ம clubbing full சாப்பிடான் சரி சரக்கான் சரி. And here they say take everything to the brim, but the activity should be a little more, dance a little more, play a little more. But we do other things around. We eat to the brim. We dance to the brim. We drink to the brim. No. So you play to the brim. You dance to the brim. Then doing other ways. That's the way it is. Yeah. So chapter 2, he speaks about a lot on stress and aging with velocity. So he gives an example of a rabbit.
I have a question for you here, Michael.
Sure.
So this book, you mentioned that this book talks about purpose in the second chapter. So I would like to know, what is your purpose in life, and when did you identify that purpose in life? Definitely, I'm sure for me, I did not even realize what purpose in life, at least when I got graduated or got into graduation. So when did you realize, and so what is your everyday actions towards realizing that purpose in your life?
Okay. See, purpose even for me keeps constantly changing for long. But if I have to deep within me, I always value too much on family. So that's something which has got imbibed in my mind. So people who know me will always say this, value for a mother, father, brother, or sister, and the extended family.
You care for them.
So I keep saying this. My mom, even during my early days, will always say, being an eldest son, is very important. You hold the family together. So that's something which, for me, is very, very, very critical. And I do not know is the influence of my mom on me about the value for a family. Is that the books that I read of Godfather, where he emphasizes again and again of being a very good son, a very good father, very good friend. So I value too much on a family. I emphasize too much on family. I re-emphasize again and again too much on family. I re-emphasize again and again on very good comradeship or friendship or brotherhood. So that's something for me is extremely important. So if there's something which would drive me, I would rather say the word a family, and the family to start with for me would be obviously my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, and then my wife and my children. And it extends to then when I start working, my team members I would call as an extended family of mine. The fellow colleagues whom I work with will call an extended family of mine. So, but for me, the family is the very driving factor of me. That's the primary factor. But for a span of time, the Ikigai keeps continuously changing. So professionally, I would say saying that be a respectable man, be a dependable man, be a man who be looked up to, be doing a meaningful role of the role that I'm assigned to. So it keeps changing. The smaller fragments keep changing, but the larger fragment of mine is being a responsible a member of the family for me is very more critical in my opinion. So that's the way it is.
So I take it as the way one plays role effectively in their life.
எஸ், அதுல தமிழ் ஒரு அழகான வார்த்தை இருக்கு. நான் லாஸ்ட் டைம் சொன்னேன்னு தெரியல. அந்தஸ்தின் கடமை. இந்த வார்த்தை வந்து என்னோட மனசு ரொம்ப ஆழமா பதிஞ்ச வார்த்தை. இது வந்து
என்ன வார்த்தை திரும்ப சொல்லுங்க? அந்தஸ்தின்
கடமை.
Okay.
So this word is, I took this word from my mother-in-law, and she's somebody whom I always refer this book, and I think good. அந்தஸ்தின் கடமைனா உனக்குன்னு ஒரு ரோல் இருக்கும். ஒரு ரோலை வந்து நல்லா பண்ணு. இன்னைக்கு இந்த ரோல் நான் பண்றேன், ஐம் டூயிங் புக் ரிவ்யூனா அதை கிளீனா பண்ணு, கிவ் தி பெஸ்ட் ஆஃப் தி எபிலிட்டி. ஸோ ஒரு எம்ப்ளாயா கிவ் தி பெஸ்ட் ஆஃப் தி எபிலிட்டி, as a son give the best of ability, as a friend give the best of ability. So அந்த அந்தஸ்தின் கடமைன்றது முக்கியமான வார்த்தை. So in my opinion, I reinforce the word அந்தஸ்தின் கடமை. So do it what you should do really well. So good. So book also speaks about stress. Currently we take pride in saying, I have many friends of mine who will say, including I will say, my life is really hectic, stressed out, and we take pride in saying it. தப்பு கிடையாது. But too much of stress, this is not good for you. They say too much of stress leads to a lot of chaos. Too much of stress leads to a lot of early aging, gives a lot of biological disorders, what they say. Good amount of stress is good. So they also say sitting also gives you stress. So when you sit for long, you also age, is what they say. So how do they say to come out of his, like, walk to work, nadadhu ponga, use an elevator, don't use an elevator, walk up these stairs, practice social activity, be a meaningful community, work பண்ணுங்க, replace junk food, good amount of sleep. நம்மலாம் வந்து நிறைய பேர் சொல்ல சந்தோஷமா இருக்கும், படுத்தா வந்து தூக்கம் வரக்கூடாது, ஆனால் எப்படி நிம்மதியாக தூக்கம் வருதுன்னு கேட்குறோம் நம்ம, அது தப்புன்றாங்க. ஸோ யூ ஷுட் ஸ்லீப் அட்லீஸ்ட் 7 to 8 hours or even 9 hours they say. Good sleep is very very critical.
நீங்க லிஃப்ட் பத்தி, சாரி இன்டரப்ட் பண்றேன், லிஃப்ட் பத்தி சொன்னப்ப எனக்கு ஒரு, I just got reminded of one person's comment. He's a doctor. He works for MMC. He used to work for MMC. Apparently his office was in the 9th floor. So he always takes up the stairs and goes to his office. So ஒரு நாள் லிஃப்ட் ஆபரேட்டர் பார்த்துட்டு, என்ன சார் படிக்கட்டுல போறீங்க, லிஃப்ட்ல வாங்க, சீக்கிரம் மேல போயிடலாம்னு சொல்லியிருக்காரு. So the doctor responded saying, நான் சீக்கிரம் போக கூடாதுங்கிறதுக்காக தான் படிக்கட்டுல போறேன் அப்படின்னு. So இப்ப நீங்க சொன்னதோட அது ரொம்ப ரெலவெண்டா இருக்கு.
கரெக்ட், உண்மைதான். So they say small exercise is good அப்படின்னு சொல்றாங்க. So the third chapter he speaks about living with purpose, and he takes a book called of Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl, I don't know how many of you have read about Viktor Frankl. He is a Holocaust survivor, and his purpose was to he experienced what a Holocaust full of. He came out and then wrote as a book. So I would also want to review that book, Money. So I don't want to speak too much of the book right now. But Holocaust, he's a Viktor Frankl. He's a Holocaust survivor. It's a nice book that he wrote about. So maybe one of us will also review that book. So here they speak of two things. One is called logotherapy, and the second is called as psychotherapy. Psychotherapy தெரிஞ்சிருக்கும், but logotherapy நிறைய தெரிஞ்சிக்காது. So what he says, psychotherapy, make the patient lie down and make them say what is difficult for them to say. So taking them to a trance and making the patient speak what they would normally find difficult to speak is called psychotherapy. Logotherapy is make them sit straight and tell them you have to change this. It's called logotherapy. So many times we don't do this. Now what he says is you should listen to what is difficult to hear. So Money should after program say, Michael, it was good, but I would want to correct one or two things. He says if you're able to listen to what is hard to listen, then life is meaningful, is what he says.
Yeah.
So he goes back to say, search for meaning in life. He again touches little more on the Frank book about Frank. I will only quote only one thing what Frank has said. So when people go for any therapy, he used to ask them, why have you not committed suicide until today? So imagine somebody asking a question, yes, we'll get rattled, we'll get shocked. Then we'll see 100 reasons why you like to survive. Imagine Yama Dharma comes and tells me, time, Michael, it's time for you to go. So what are all things will I say to Yama Dharma, saying that kindly, give me some more time. So that's what he speaks about in the book. So Viktor Frankl, he says, he'll ask a question to the people saying that, if he actually says in he who has right to live for can bear almost any half. I read again. He who has a why to live for can bear with almost any half. So நான் வாழணும் ஆசைப்படுறதா எவ்வளோ பிரச்சனை இருந்தாலும் பாதுகாக்க முடியும், ஓட முடியும். He says about Frank book. So we live in crisis. We live out of crisis. So we should know how to manage the crisis, what he touches on. The next one he speaks about is like now how to turn, chapter 4, like he speaks about how to turn work or free time into growth. And here he speaks about flow. Earlier you asked me about a flow. The flow, I was really impressed about flow. Bruce Lee refers to the word, be water, my friend. Bruce Lee, the famous dialogue, be water, my friend. இந்த வார்த்தைக்கு நம்ம நிறைய பேர் அர்த்தம் புரியாது, தெரியாது. ஆனா நம்ம உள்ள போக போக I understood this. So there are few things that we do, time போனே தெரியாது. There are few things that we enjoy doing so much that we do not even know the time is passing by. Like, for example, I'm doing this for the last 37 minutes, and for me it looks like only 7 minutes. I'm sure for the other person who's going to listen, may think it's like 30 minutes, or for me it's only 7 minutes. So when you start enjoying doing what we do, you will be cherishing it. When I was reading this book about this, I was only thinking about my college days. And college there's a golden triangle and there's a stone bench. I don't know how many of you would remember this, especially the alumni of social work and those who studied would remember about the stone bench. The stone bench in college வாசல்ல 4-5 benches இருக்கும். அந்த பெஞ்ச்ல பார்த்தோம்னா 3 மணிக்கு காலேஜ் முடிஞ்சு உட்கார்ந்து பேச ஆரம்பிச்சோம்னா நைட் 9 வரைக்கும் பேசிட்டே இருப்போம். இருட்டானதும் தெரியாது, லைட் வந்ததும் தெரியாது. பேசுவோம் பேசிட்டே இருப்போம். நமக்கு பின்னாடி கோல்டன் ட்ரையாங்கிள் ஒன்று இருக்கும். அந்த யூஸ் பி ஒரு பிசி ஒரு ஃபோன் ஒன்று இருக்கும் ஃபார் தி ஹாஸ்டல் ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ்க்காக. அது கீழே ஒரு ட்ரையாங்கிள் ஒன்று இருக்கும், ஒரு படிப்பு ஒரு ட்ரையாங்கிள். அங்கே உட்காந்து பேசிட்டே இருந்தான். So when I was reading this book, I was remembering my friends and myself speaking to certain people in our class for hours together without even knowing that time is running by. So it's as good as that. There are people who enjoy painting, drawing, singing, swimming, speaking. So that's what is meaning by flow. So flows means something which you cherish doing it without even having thinking about the time is running by. So when does the flow come in, or how do you get the flow? So when you know what to do. So if you have a clarity and purpose of knowing what you should do, then you have a flow. If you know how to do, knowing how to do will give you flow. Knowing how well you're doing, you will know the flow is there. So when you say how to do, where to go, suppose theriyala enga porom, so then you'll be enjoying the flow. When you know the significant challenges that you may encounter, na panna poradhu prachana oru therinchana, then you will enjoy it. When you
some comments are coming in, so I'm just sharing that.
Oh, sure. I would like not get distracted. I see a few friends of mine.
Please.
So when you are able to see the significant challenges, then you will enjoy it. When you know you have a significant skill in achieving, then you will have the flow. When you have fear of distraction, you have the flow. So when I was telling you, saying that when I see that, then when I see my friends, I get very cautious. Then that when you don't get distracted, the flow is beautiful. So that's what the flow is. So flow is something which it happens automatically. You cherish doing it. Here he referred to about Steve Jobs. Steve goes to Japan. He meets a man who makes the teapot, Japanese teapot, and he meets a man called Sakun Naga. So he's a man who makes one of the best man who makes teapot, and he plays an order for him for making his teapot. So the man he says he made 150 teapots, and in that he chose only 1 dozen and sends it across to Steve Jobs. So imagine making ஒரு டசன் அனுப்புறதுக்காக 150 டீபாட் பண்ணி அது ஒரு டசன் அனுப்பிச்சிருக்காரு. So that's the way you should be. So you should not even feel the pain of doing a teapot is what he refers to about. So that's the way it is. And he quotes about one more example of a man called Miyazaki. And the man is in history called as never ending man. He's called as Hayao Miyazaki. So he can draw a parallels about he's an artist, cartoon artist, like Walt Disney of US Mari. He's Japanese, one of the renowned cartoonists. So he does manual hand sketching for all his paintings and all his cartoon artists. So all his cartoons are hand sketch is what he speaks about. So in 2013 he says I'm retiring. He announced the world that he's retiring. So announce பண்ணி அடுத்த நாள் காலங்காத்தால 9 மணிக்கு ஆபீஸ்க்கு வந்து உட்கார்ந்திருக்காரு. So அப்ப கேக்குறாங்க என்னங்க ரிட்டையர் ஆயிட்டீங்கன்னு சொல்றாங்க. I said I'm retiring and I never said I will stop sketching. So he was sketching for his life. So when you start doing that, when you start enjoying what you're doing, there's no retirement and run. So when I read this, so I was remembering of one nice example of in my personal life. So I stay in Arumbakam, so in Chennai. So in Pakatla, now the government has a practice of collecting garbage through a garbage collector. So that's my man called, one of the morning I was sitting at home and waiting to get ready to office. Me and wife were discussing. Like many of the days, or like few of the days, I was really, worried, cribbing, office ponuma, kadupa irukku, traffic, ஆயிரம் பிரச்சனை இருக்கு அப்படியே தலை சுரிஞ்சு உட்கார்ந்திருந்தேன். So I was passing, seeing Danny passing by. So he was, always saying, "Sir, good morning, sir." அப்படி full tone கத்துவார் ரோட்ல இருந்து. "Good morning, sir." கத்துற பேர் வந்து நான் கேட்டேன் டானி எப்படி என்ன சந்தோஷமா இருக்கீங்க கேட்டேன் நான். ஏன்னா அவர் செய்யற வேலை வந்து வீடோட போய் குப்பை வாரிட்டு அந்த அழுக்கும் குப்பையை மாறி அந்த குப்பை வண்டியில தள்ளிட்டு போட வேண்டியதான் வேலை. டானி என்ன டானி சந்தோஷமா இருக்கீங்க? நான் சொன்னேன், சார் என்ன சார் கவலை வாழ்க்கையில? சந்தோஷமா இருக்கிறேன் சார், நல்ல வேலை சார் அப்படின்னு. ரொம்ப ஆச்சரியமா இருந்துச்சு. வாட் வில் பி மேக்கிங், என்ன சம்பாதிப்பாரு, என்ன வேலை செய்வாரு, ரொம்ப சொன்னா குப்பை வர வேலை. அந்த சந்தோஷம் போது நான் திருப்பி பார்த்தேன். நான் இவ்வளவு சம்பளம் வாங்குறேன், நிறைய பேர் பார்த்திருக்கேன், ஆனா எவ்வளவு சந்தோஷம் வேலைக்கு போவான்னு தெரியல. So whenever I remember this, I always remember this guy called Danny. So how can you make your life so meaningful? So ரொம்ப பெரிய விஷயம். Routine job எப்படி சந்தோஷம் பண்ண முடியும்? So he speaks about Bill Gates. Bill Gates வந்து at home he washes his own plates, he washes dishes and helps his wife. So he says, I create a pattern to wash plates at my home. I create a pattern to clean the things in order at the kitchen அப்படின்றாரு. ஸோ சின்ன சின்ன வேலையை கூட சந்தோஷமா ப்ராசஸ் பண்ணோம்னா சந்தோஷம் இருக்குன்றாங்க. ஸோ அதனால I think it's time that we also start doing even small fractions of activity, little more joy. Then there's a flow in life is what he says. And there's a longevity in what he says. And chapter 5 primarily speaks about eating less. As I told you even earlier, 80% is what we should eat and not beyond that. And in chapter 6, he goes to about a village called Ogimino village Porare. And the village I spoke about clubbing, celebrating each day. Yeah. There are references of that in this, which I'm going to avoid because of paucity of time. And then he goes to a place about God. They speak about called Shinto. Shinto like India, Shinto is the path to God. How do you reach God is through called Shinto. And they speak of ancestral worship. Again, I draw the parallels in Indian culture. நிறைய பேர் வந்து இன்னைக்கு வந்து ப்ராக்டிஸ் இருக்கு. அப்பா அம்மா வந்து தெய்வம் வழிபடுறது. I stay with somebody, my neighboring roommate is called one Sanjeevi. So இண்டஸ்ட்ரி வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு கடவுள் கும்பிட்ற மாதிரி அவங்க அப்பா அம்மாவோட போட்டோ கும்பிடுவார். எனக்கு அந்த பழக்கம் இது வரைக்கும் கிடையாது. I have not practice praying to my mom and dad as of today. But when I could remember, so அவர் எப்பவுமே காலைல இண்டஸ்ட்ரி பார்த்தா குளிச்சுட்டு வந்த உடனே அவங்க அம்மா அப்பா போட்டோ தொட்டு கும்பிடுவாரு. அப்படின்னு சொல்ல எனக்கு அம்மா அன்னையும் பிதாவும் முன்னறி தெய்வம் மாதிரி எனக்கு அம்மா அப்பா தான் கடவுள். ஸோ நான் கடவுள் தொடுற மாதிரி எங்க அம்மா அப்பா தொட்டு தான் நான் டே ஆரம்பி பண்ணுவாங்க. ஸோ இந்தியன் கல்ச்சர்ல பார்த்தோம்னா நிறைய பேர் ப்ராக்டிஸ் இருக்கு. தே வர்ஷிப் காட், தே வர்ஷிப் அவர் ஆன்சிஸ்டர்ஸ். நிறைய பேர் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா அந்த கல்யாணத்துக்கு அவங்க அம்மாவோட தாலியவோ இல்லை அவங்க அம்மா அப்பா யூஸ் பண்ண ஒரு பொருளையோ தே கிவ் அஸ் கல்யாணம் பண்றவங்களுக்கு அதை திருப்பி கொண்டு போவாங்க. ஸோ இந்தியன் கல்ச்சர் நிறைய பேர் ப்ராக்டிஸ் இருக்கு. As I keep telling you, there's a lot of Indian culture we are still missing it out. So they have a practice called MABUI, Mabui. Mabui means the practice of taking forth from your ancestor to your next generation called Mabui. So அப்பா யூஸ் பண்ண அம்மா கல்யாண பொண்ணு கொடுத்து அனுப்புற வந்து ஒரு கிச்சன் யூட்டன்சில்ஸா இருக்கலாம், ஒரு கடவுள் படமா இருக்கலாம், அவங்க யூஸ் பண்ண ட்ரெஸ்ஸா இருக்கலாம். So that's something which we still practice. So Japanese, they as a practice, they go back to their ancestors, like Indian culture. So what I'm trying to say here is, I think whether I'm not trying to suggest or recommend anything, but it's good to practice, looking up to your parents, little differences, not after their demise, but during when they're alive. So நிறைய பேர் வந்து my wife will always say this, மைக்கேல் இறந்து போன தாத்தாக்கு வந்து மாலை போடாதீங்க, இருக்கிற அப்பா நல்லா பாத்துங்க அப்படின்னு. இறந்து போனது கல்லறை போயிட்டு மாலை வைக்கிறது பதில் இருக்கிற அப்பா அம்மா நல்லா பாத்துக்கணுவாங்க. So that's what my wife keeps saying to me again and again. So though I tell everybody, so இறந்து போனதுக்கு அப்புறம் கடவுள் மாதிரி அம்மா அப்பாவுக்கு கலர் கட்டுறதுக்கும் அம்மா அப்பா போய் தினக்கு ப்ரே பண்றது பதில் இருக்கிற அம்மா அப்பாவை நல்லா பாத்துங்க, இருக்கிற வயசானவங்களை நல்லா பாத்துங்க is what I practice. And I also tell people saying I think we should practice that one. So ancestral worship is extremely important. not after the demise, but when they are alive. So for me, one takeaway to everybody, if I have to take one takeaway to everybody, is only this: saying that I do not believe in praying to your parents after their demise. Look up to them and stand by them when you are alive, when they are alive. So there's no point in praying them after when they're demise. So that's something which I would like to. One takeaway for today is going to be that for everybody. So there's no point in praying to parents when after they demise, but take care of them when they're alive.
Very important.
So back to the next one. They speak about 100 interviews of people of good health, what is good for them. So they say, don't worry. Practice good habits.
I will just pass a message here, Michael. Just a reminder, please be sure to type your questions in the chat box. We will get them answered if at all you have any.
Sure. Money, how much time do you have, Money? How
you
much
can
time
you can take you can take another 10 minutes. No more. We have time.
Sure. So it says nurture friendship. Live don't live a hurried life. Live a humble life. Be optimistic. There are a lot of when they interview people, these are the takeaways from them is what they speak about, and they also speak about what do people eat and drink life, and to live a little more than 85 years. So he speaks about a few things. They say in Japanese food, they have a lot of vegetables and fruits. They eat 5 to 7 vegetables in a day. They eat at least 30% of their food is vegetables. They eat less of direct sugar. It's a surprise for me when I read this. They say they avoid eating direct sugar, and they eat fish. I'm sure most of us may not like to eat fish, but if you're eating fish, they say they eat 3 meals of fish in a week. What is amazing is they take only 7 grams of salt per day. When in the particular village they eat 7 grams. In Japan they eat 12 grams. I don't know what is the average for Indian, but I know we have salt, but Japanese eat only 7 grams of salt in a day. And the way I live in Andhra, we thrive on salt and masala, but they say it's not good for health. So to longevity and to look pretty beautiful, I think we should start using less of sugar, less of salt, and there's nothing new. Again, in our own culture, we speak about this to eat less of sugar and salt, but current culture demands us to eat too much of sweet and salt and masala. But they say avoid it. Ideal to eat less than 2,000 calories of food is what they speak about. And as I told earlier, eat 80%. The book on many places reinforces again and again, eat only 80%, eat maybe 1,800 calories, what the book speaks about. And chapter 8 speaks about gentle movement. He speaks about don't rush, don't run. So if you see the Japanese, the dance is never like a bhangra, bang, 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 like how we seen, like no vibrant movements. They speak of graceful movement is what they speak about. And they have a practice called radio taiso. When they say radio, the name comes from because in long time before today we have YouTube. Earlier they used to announce in radio about gentle movements of exercise. So they say that's a word. That's the way they coined the term radio taiso about doing moderate exercise. And I was surprised when I read about sun salutation. That's called the simplest one, Surya Namaskaram. The book refers to Surya Namaskaram. எனக்கு தெரியல எவ்வளவு பேர் Surya Namaskaram practice பண்ண தெரியல. And one thing which I like to practice Surya Namaskaram, not practice try பண்ணேன். Last time a friend of mine was suggesting I should try doing it, Surya Namaskaram. I have got a very good friend of mine called Bala Murugan. So அவர் என்கிட்ட சொல்லுவார், சூரிய நமஸ்காரம் ரொம்ப நல்ல விஷயம். இட்ஸ் நத்திங் டு வித் ரிலிஜன். சூரிய நமஸ்காரம் பண்ணனாவே நம்ம கண்ணுக்கு உடம்புக்கு அவ்வளவு நல்லதுன்னுவாங்க. இந்த புக் ரீஎம்பசைஸ் அபௌட் அந்த புக்ல ஆக்சுவலா படம் போட்டு காமிச்சிருக்கான் சூரிய நமஸ்காரம் என்ன, அது எப்படி பண்ணணும்னு காமிச்சிருக்கான். So
it has a lot of benefits from head to toe.
Head to toe. So சூரிய நமஸ்காரம்
from head to toe it has a lot of benefits.
இந்தியன் கல்ச்சர் எவ்வளவு பேர் சூரிய நமஸ்காரம் தெரியல. ஆனா என்னை பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் சூரிய நமஸ்காரம் ரொம்ப அழகா ரெஃபர் பண்ணிருக்காங்க. So what I'm saying is நம்ம நிறைய பிராக்டிஸ் பண்ணோம் இல்லையா, அட்லீஸ்ட் சூரிய நமஸ்காரம் ட்ரை பண்ணலாம். We may not be perfectionists, but we can try Surya Namaskaram is what I would say. And one thing which I like to practice Surya Namaskaram before, and I don't know how much I'm going to practice, but I would like to practice Surya Namaskaram. And they speak of breathing techniques. India lana yoga is nothing but breathing techniques. Meditation is nothing but breathing techniques. We have rich culture and heritage. Number book number practice so the book re-emphasizes about meditation again and again, and re-emphasis on meditation.
Meditation.
And the last one in this is about resilience. The chapter 9 speaks about resilience. Resilience is nothing much but able to bounce back continuously. Bouncing back continuously is called resilience. Again, recently, 1 month before, I was speaking to somebody about resilience. He brought me the concept of resilience to me sometime before. So resilience is very critical. All of us may fail. Like when I say, Surya can try to practice I may try, but I may do for 2 days, 3 days, and then I may stay falter. But nothing wrong. After 1 week, restart it. When you fall down, stand up and run forward is what resilience. You try doing a new business venture, you fall down, you try practice again, it's called resilience all about. So the book also speaks about being cynic or being cynicism is what it says. So which means there's nothing wrong in being running towards pleasure. But you should never get addicted. So pleasure cannot take over lead of you. This is what the book speaks about. So many times we convert pleasure to a bad thing. So what he says, nothing wrong in trying to be, having a peaceful life or taking worldly pleasure. ரொம்ப யோசம்னா ஐயோ சக்கரை சாப்பிடாம ஸ்வீட் சாப்பிடாம நல்ல சாப்பாடு சாப்பிடாம நல்ல பிரியாணி சாப்பிட வார்த்தை அப்படின்றது doesn't say that. What he concludes by saying is these things are critical, but that should not have control on yourself. The Rajni சொல்ற மாதிரி தான் நீ கண்ட்ரோல் இருந்தா தப்பு கிடையாது, அதுல கண்ட்ரோல் எடுத்தா தப்பு. So that's what the book speaks about.
Everything in moderation.
Yeah, so everything in moderation is what it speaks about. So, and the last one that he speaks about is being here and being now. Live the moment. If you're here, live the minute. Live the life is what he speaks about. And the last phrase in the book is about wabi sabi. Wabi sabi, which means beauty is not perfection. நம்ம எல்லாருமே ஒரு திங்கிங் உண்டு. கலர் இருந்தால் தான் கலருக்காக போய் சொல்ல மாட்டான், அழகா இருந்தால் தான் நல்லவன், கொஞ்சம் ஆள் கரடு முரடா இருந்தா கெட்டவன், கொஞ்சம் டிஃபார்மேஷன் இருந்தா எடுக்க மாட்டோம். சின்ன கதை சொல்லுவாங்க, அந்த நாய்க்குட்டி வந்து டிஃபார்மான நாய்க்குட்டி யாரும் எடுக்க மாட்டாங்கன்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. உடச்சிருந்தா நல்லது சொல்லுவாங்க, ஒரு பூச்சியில புழு இருந்தா அது எடுக்க மாட்டோன்றாங்க. ஸோ ஜாப்பனீஸ் என்ன சொல்றாங்கன்னா, they saying imperfection is beauty indraanga. So they say even as a cracked teapot, they like to have it with them because the crack allows to see things better. The crack allows you to get light inside indraanga. So when the world revolves around trying to be perfect, they say nothing is perfect. Beauty is not flawless. Being flaw is beauty abindraanga. As I told you earlier, the most pictured woman in the world is Mother Teresa, where the most of the wrinkles in her face. The most photographed man is Mahatma Gandhi, who had we know how he looks, thin frame, with bald head, rimmed glasses, broad ears. So not a picture perfect man. He was the most captured photograph in the world is Mahatma Gandhi, and the most painted portrait is Mother Teresa. So what more to speak of picture perfectness. So with that I conclude. Mani, thanks for the opportunity. I think I took another 10 minutes extra, 55, I took 10 minutes extra. I hope others enjoy the session. I enjoy the session. I love the session. Thanks for the opportunity.
There are a couple of questions I would like to just bring them on the screen.
Sure.
From your experience as an HR, suggest us how to maintain good relationships. It's a $1 billion question to you. So from your experience as an HR, suggest us how to maintain good relationships.
Okay, so I would not confine this to only with HR. I would rather say, relationship building is mutual, mutual benefit, mutual joy. Appreciating other person is what it is, and be the first person to say sorry. So I play shuttle in the morning. Shuttle order up, somebody will say, "Number podrappe tappa podana." I just say, "I'm sorry, I missed it." So if you are the first person to say sorry, is the first person to say accept, is the first person to appreciate, and I think you would have the best of relationship. And there's nothing called permanency in life. only circumstantial is what I would say. This minute, somebody could have been annoying, but if you look back a little later, no, you only forgive them. I have got a lot of memories of mine, where I could have been really vehemently angry, but today when I think back, I just say it's a passing cloud. So I don't know if I got the right response, but this is what I feel about it.
All right. So I think we'll take some time to delve a little bit more into the Japanese and Indian culture. I think now you have experience in manufacturing, working as HR head, and you have a very diverse experience working for four different companies, for four different industries, perhaps.
Right.
So what I know is many of the manufacturing companies have drawn their concepts of practices from Japan. Particularly, we talk about Toyota Way and all that. So such practices exist. And I'm sure you are also aware of the culture study, the Hofstede's culture. It says Japanese companies always will have a long-term orientation when it comes to goals or objective setting, unlike the other countries. So I think no, from the book that you said, it is a long-term. It is not just about long-term life. It is their culture itself is designed that way. I think is that how it is? Because not only in personal life, even in professional life, the way they approach business, the way they approach work, so everything is long-term oriented.
See, I
How do
will
you see that?
give two examples over here. One, the current company that I'm associated with, and one
Hmm.
company that I have known, which is really good for it. I refer TVS. I have got a very good friend of mine, my neighbor. In my early days of, when I was doing my 600, 10 standard, his mother used to work for TVS. And the evening, she used to bring us snacks. I don't know whether practice still continues in TVS. They used to bring snacks back home, so which my friend called, his name is Suresh. He's a cinema producer right now, but he's not doing right now well, but he's a film producer. He was my neighbor, so we used to wait for his mother to come back home. அந்த கொண்டு வர அந்த மிக்சருக்காகவும் அந்த காரா பூந்திக்காகவும் அடிதடி நடக்கும் எங்களுக்கு. ஸோ இன்னைக்கு நினைக்க பார்க்குறப்ப ரொம்ப சந்தோஷமா இருக்கும். எப்படி ஒரு கம்பெனியால வந்து அவன் எம்ப்ளாய் மட்டும் இல்லாம அவன் வீட்டுக்கும் அதை வந்து அவங்க வீட்டுக்கு கொடுத்தாங்களா, அந்த அப்பா எம்ப்ளாய் கொடுத்தாங்களா தெரியாது எனக்கு. பட் ஹிஸ் மதர் யூஸ் டு பிரிங் இட் ஹோம். ஸோ அதே மாதிரி when I was doing my internship in TVS Fasteners, Sundaram Fasteners. Now PG I was doing my Sundaram Fasteners. There's a man called Mr. Robin. I don't know what Robin, but there's a man called Mr. Robin. I miss his full name. He was also in food. So he was a Sundaram Fasteners. So the food that they gave at that point of time was amazing. So ஒரு சாதாரண குடிமகனுக்கு தேவை நல்ல சாப்பாடு, ஒரு சேஃப் ஒர்க் என்வாயன்மெண்ட், கண்டினியூஸ் எம்ப்ளாய்மெண்ட். அவன் வேலை இல்லையா, பிள்ளைக்கு வேலை கொடுத்தாங்க. ஸோ these are good practices. Did they replicate from Japanese culture, or is the value was good? I do not know, but a very good culture. So in my opinion, those things are very, very critical. If you're able to see somebody else as part of a family, people tend to be a little more longer. And I will give the same example of even Dalmia Cement. The factory in Dalmia Puram, we have generation of generation. Adu Tata, Appa, Pulla. I know 3 generations of people who had worked in Dalmia. Dalmia Puram. And I've known my earlier, I don't want to go to the name of the people, but I know people who have worked like that. நீங்க திருச்சி டால்மிபுரம் போனீங்கன்னா அந்த ஊரே அந்த ஃபேக்டரி சுத்தி வாழ்க்கை வாழ்ற மாதிரி தான் இருக்கும் நம்மளுக்கு. ஸோ யாரை கேட்டாலுமே ஏன் ஃபேக்டரின்ற மாதிரி இருக்கும். இன்னைக்கும் அங்க இருக்க மக்கள் இந்த ப்ரொமோட்டர்ஸ்க்கு ஃபோன் பண்ணி பேசுறதுக்கு they have access to that. ஸோ அதனால வந்து if you're able to bring the mix of personal touch to the corporate world, you can see people being a little more happy, and you have the ஒரு personal touch ஒரு bond இருக்கும். ஆனா இப்போ கரண்ட் கான்டெக்ட்ல நிறைய பார்த்தோம்னா என்ன ஆகுதுன்னா அந்த ஒரு பயம் வந்துருக்கு. நம்மளுக்கு வேலை நிரந்தரமா, எம்ப்ளாயர் நிரந்தரமா, நம்மளுக்கு வேலை நிரந்தரமா இருக்குமா? அப்ப என்ன ஆகுதுன்னா வந்து the temporary fear doesn't allow you to give the best of it. என்னடா இன்னைக்கு வரைக்கும் வேலை நாளைக்கு இருக்குமா தெரியாது எனக்கு. So that is not a very, in my opinion, great culture. I think we should have bonding to the place that you're associated.
கண்டிப்பா. இப்போ நம்ம வந்து ஒர்க் லைஃப் பேலன்ஸ் அப்படிங்கறத பத்தி ரொம்ப பேசிட்டு இருக்கோம். 8 hours work and then balance. I want personal time. A lot of Gen Y and millennials talk about it. When I used to work for L&T a few years back, my boss used to say, my job is winning me bread and butter. Right? So how can I have a balance in life? So it is part of my life. So whereas this book Ikigai talks about work and life to be one.
Correct.
I think that's how they look at it. So I see a lot of contradictory cultural approach towards things in India as well as against Japan. So how do you see that?
I will like to give only one. Work-life balance is a right question. Today it is not work-life balance; it's like work-life integration is what I would rather call that as.
Integration. Okay.
Okay. When how do you say that? இப்போ பார்த்தீங்கன்னா the phone வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா the phone that I carry, is not only takes me home, it also takes me work. So
Correct.
office, my wife calls me, my friends call me, my children come. Nobody's preventing you from telling that don't take a personal call. Imagine, say 20 years before, how many employees would have picked a call in place of work? How many people would have comfort to work from home? So today it's become integrated. So வீட்டு நடந்த அதே மாதிரி இன்னைக்கு we are extending our family to work and work to family also. இது வந்து ஒரு necessary evil. I do not know use the word necessary evil, but I will say necessary requirements சொல்ல முடியும் நம்மளால இன்னைக்கு. So today it's become integrated. So you have comfort morning வேலை செய்ய கஷ்டம். இப்போ வந்து I can give an example. My co-brother's daughter who was in a family way, the company allowed her to sit at home and work, which wasn't the case some 10 years before or not even 10 years body. Was there a possibility? We do not know. So today is an integration of work, life, then balance is what I would say.
ஓகே ஓகே நிறைய விஷயங்கள் ரைட் ஃப்ரம் நிறைய இந்த புக்கு வந்து ரொம்ப பிடிச்சிருந்ததுன்னு சொல்லி நீங்க ப்ரெசென்ட் பண்ணிருந்தீங்க, நம்ம பேசும்போது சொல்லியிருந்தீங்க. So many things you talked about the purpose. The book talks about family, relationships, and the food habits, vegetables, less sugar and fish. I think, see, what I think is what I understand from what you shared is the kudos to the writers of this book, the authors. They have done a fantastic study. I think when they did the study, it would have been very interesting for them to go delve deep into it, live with them, understand the culture, food habits. I think comparatively to the other books, this book is even writing would have been a very, very enriching experience, very, very joyful experience. That's how I feel it. So that's something. And so you, Hector and Francis, right? Francis the bells. Okay. So it was good to listen to Ikigai. The words of Hector and Vance go from the voice of Mr. Michael Rajesh today. And so any concluding remarks, Michael, would you like to share?
No, I only got to say this morning. So you have kindled the practice of reading, not only reading, and also my interpretation of the book. So thanks for the opportunity. And after reading this book, I am also looking at our own villages, our own Indian culture, and I would like to know at least whenever there's a possibility, go back and see the good thing that we see in certain our own villages. There's a village near a place called Salai. Day yesterday, a classmate of mine called Mani had formed a video of a village called Salai near Ramnad. The village has 69 community and caste of people who live in harmony. The entire village has a similar format of houses. They still don't have electricity. They still survive on solar power, and they live in harmony, and they live a meaningful life. And there's no caste system, there's no religious bias, there's no untoward incident over there. They don't still use mobile phones. And I was quite surprised when today because of religion and caste we are so divided. How come a village in Tamil Nadu is able to survive with 69 diversified inter-religion, inter-caste system? So I don't know how many of us are aware of this. When this video came to me, I felt I should go to the village and see how do the people live there. So when somebody in Japan has traveled few thousand kilometers to go and read, I really felt I should go to the village and see how it is. And I'm sure there are so many villages which we don't know, which are the best practices. And if everyone starts speaking about their own village that they come from, I think that is said and done. And I'll close only with one remark. My boss will always tell me, திண்டுக்கல் சொன்னா மைக்கேல் வேலை கொடுத்துருவான் பாடின்னு வரேங்கிட்ட. நான் தான் சொல்லுவாங்க, திண்டுக்கல் எல்லாரும் நல்லவங்க அப்படின்னு. திண்டுக்கல் இதுலயும் மைக்கேல் பாடினா இன்னும் ரொம்ப நல்லவங்க. So if everyone go back to their own villages where they come from, if they start adopting their village, if I start saying every man in my village called Michael Paulin can be given a guidance or a direction or an employment, ஒன்னும் இல்ல, அவன் பிஇ படிச்சு வேலை டைரக்ஷன் கொடுத்தா போதும், I can do a meaningful do to the village I come from. So that's the way I conclude by saying that every one of us can go back to the roots that we come from and see what, not many, or 5 பேருக்கு நம்ம முடிஞ்ச செஞ்சா I think it is done. So to take away from money. So when I say this to you, I will see what good I can go back and do to the village where I was born. So I will definitely do that. So
connecting back to the roots.
I will go back to the place that I come from and see what small I can do to the people from where they come from. If every one of us can go back to the where we come from and do one small thing, I think it's taken care. You start taking care of your people, your family, your village. I think it's a blissful place to live. So with that, I conclude, Mani. Thanks for the opportunity. I love doing
Thank
this.
you.
I'm eager to do the next one. Thank you so much, Mani.
Sure, Michael. Thank you, and we will look. I look forward to conduct more sessions. Thank you. Uh, All right. Good afternoon, all. We have concluded this session for today. Some information, additional messages from Change Agents Foundation. The Change Agents Foundation will be having many such series in the coming days. Particularly for cover and content, we'll be having a session every month. And from the next session, we are planning to have it as a closed group meetings where we will at least have 100 participants will get to see the program live with us because we felt that it would be even more meaningful to have the participants interact directly, chat with the speaker or the guest. So thank you so much. Follow us on Change Agents Foundation YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/change agents foundation, and similarly it is facebook.com/change agents foundation. Thanks for your time and have a good weekend. Thank you.